The Zack Files. How to Speak a Dolphin in 3 Easy Lessons. Don Greenberg. Chapter 1. I have to ask you something. How smart do you think dolphins are? I always figured they were somewhere between chimpanzees and NFL linebackers. Then I had a real experience with dolphins that totally changed my mind. Not that having weird experiences is a big deal to me. Once, a volcano goddess in Hawaii put a curse on me. Another time, a bratty girl ghost named Wanda trashed our apartment. And also, I met a boy who turned out to be my son from the future. He was on a time tour bus with his school class. Stuff like that. Oh, by the way, my name is Jack. I'm 10 and a half. And I go to the Horace Hyde White School for Boys in New York City. There aren't a whole lot of dolphins here. The dolphins I met lived in Florida. My dad and I drove down there over spring vacation. My dad is a freelance writer. That means he works at home, sitting at his desk all day and staring out at the window. He calls the roughing out ideas. People give him money for it. When I do it in school, they call it not paying attention. People give me detention for it. Anyway, getting back to Florida, Dad was going there to write an article for Fruit Growers Digest about the world's largest orange. This orange was about the size of a basketball. That's bigger than the ones we usually get at our supermarket in New York City. The town where they grew, this orange was near a tiny motel and amusement park called Mel and Shirley's Wonderful World of Dolphins. We were staying there because Mel and Shirley are really old friends of my grandma Lee. It seemed like the trip was never going to end. Finally, we turned off the turnpike onto a smaller road. In 5 more minutes, we were there. On the roof of the motel was this neon sign in the shape of a smiling dolphin. The words, 4 shows daily. Blinked on and off in the neon water spout about the neon dolphin's head. Near the motel, there was a little roller coaster track with only 2 tiny bumps in it. It wouldn't have even scared a baby, but they called it the Screamer. There were some kiddie rides with cars in the shape of dolphins, and of course, they had this big dolphin pool. Mel and Shirley were playing a game of Scrabble by the dolphin pool. "We've been waiting for you," said Shirley. She came right over and began kissing me and Dad all over the place. Dad took our bags out of the car, but Mel brushed Dad away and took them from him. "Mel, I can carry those," said Dad. "Get out of here," said Mel. "You think I'm an old man or something?" They put our stuff in one of the little motel cabins. Then they all went into the front office so Charlie could give us a snack before bedtime. On the walls, there were all kinds of framed photographs of Shirley and with Mel in a pool. They were horsing around with the 2 tiny dolphins. "These are pictures of Ralph and Fluffy when they were babies," said Shirley. "Aren't they adorable?" I said they were. Ralph and Fluffy were their dolphins. I personally doubt I'd name a dolphin Fluffy. I mean, what's so fluffy about a dolphin? Nothing, that's what. Later, Dad told me that the Fluffy was the name of a favorite cat of Shelley's that had died. So I guess that explains it. Except maybe not. Jack, would you like to meet Ralph and Fluffy? Shelley asked. I'd love to, I said. Shelley took me back outside to the edge of the dolphin pool. There were bleachers around it, like at the Sea World, only a lot smaller. It was pretty dark out, but you could see Ralph and Fluffy swimming round and round. Ralph! Fluffy! Shelley called. Come on, kids, say hello to Jack. Both dolphins stopped swimming. They stuck their heads out of the water and made these really funny noises. Whistles and the sort of clicks. Then they waved their flippers at me. Cool. This was the first time I've seen real live dolphins and not on some TV nature show. Good, very nice, kids, cried Shelley. Very nice, Jack, throw them salt treats. Shelley handed me a buckle. It was filled with dead fish. Go ahead, said Shelley. I wasn't crazy about touching dead fish. I really wouldn't. But I also didn't want to be rude. I reached into the buckle, grabbed the two slimy dead fish, and threw them into the pool. The dolphins caught them in their mouths and gulped them down. Very nice, kids, cried Shelley. Crick, crick. The dolphins chirped. Click, click. The dolphins chirped. They looked very pleased with themselves. One of the dolphins swam right up to the edge of the pool. It waved at me again with its flipper. So I waved back. It was the only polite thing to do. Then, I can't be absolutely sure of this, but it looked like it winked at me. Can dolphins wink? I wasn't going to ask Dad about that, but I was too sleepy. When I woke up the next morning, Dad had already left to interview the world's largest orange. Well, actually, the guy who grew it. I told Dad I wanted to hang out at the motel anyway. Ralph and Fluffy were doing their first show at 10 a.m. I got to the dolphin pool a little early to get a good seat. I didn't have to rush. Besides, Mel, I was the only person in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Shelley said into a microphone, welcome to Mel and Shelley's wonderful world of dolphins. Let's have a big round of applause for the stars of our show, Ralph and Fluffy. I clapped very hard. So did Mel. I guess that counted as a round of applause, because out swam Ralph and Fluffy. Charlie had the dolphins do a whole lot of tricks. They did the somersaults in the air. They swam on their backs. They tossed a basketball into a net. Michael Jordan didn't have anything to worry about. They were pretty good for amateurs. Would somebody in the audience like to give Fluffy a hug? Shelley asked. She looked around. Like there was this big crowd. How about you, young man? She said, pointing to me. Oh, well, sure, I guess, I said. I guess so. I came down from the bleachers to the edge of the pool. good, said Charlie. Lean over to the side of the pool. Make a big circle with your arm. Fluffy will rise up into the circle, and you will hug her. Okay, I said. Make the circle with your arms now. Like this? Yep. Now lean over the side of the pool. Fluffy rose right up into my arms. She put her head on my shoulder. I hugged her. It was a nice feeling. She felt like a rubber, smooth, wet, silver rubber. Suddenly, I lost my balance and fell into the pool. Car splash. Before I knew it, I was underwater. The water was freezing cold, but I happened to be a pretty good swimmer. So even with my clothes and shoes on, I was okay. Suddenly I felt something underneath me, pushing me upward, pushing me to the surface. That's when the weird thing happened. This soft voice that wasn't mine sounded inside my head. I've got you, dear. You're safe. Then my head was out of the water. A second later, I scrambled out of the pool. Jack, are you alright? Yelled Mel. Sure, I said. A little wet is all. About 1,000 gallons of water poured at me. Are you okay, Jack? Shelley asked. Of course, I said, emptying my sneakers. But do you want to hear something weird? When I was underwater, I think Fluffy talked to me. Well, of course she talked to you, said Shelley. She whistles, she clicks, she makes all kinds of sounds. I don't mean whistles and clicks, I said. It was a voice inside my mind. Mel and Shelley looked at each other. Mel laughed and shook his head. Hey, get out of here. What did Fluffy said? Asked Shelley. I've got you, dear. You're safe, I said. Hey, get out of here, said Mel again. Shelley gave Mel a dirty look. Mel, she said, would you please let the young man talk? Who's not letting him talk? Said Mel. I'm letting him talk. I'm just saying, hey, get out of here, that's all. Jack, said Shelley. Some people think that dolphins communicate with each other by some kind of ESP. It's just that I never heard of dolphins speaking to a person. Not till now, I said. Chapter 2. Back in the motel cabin, I toweled off and started to put on some dry clothes. I thought about what had happened. Did the dolphin really talk to me? Weirder things than that have happened. But why me? Mel and Charlie had known Ralph and Fluffy for years. Would Fluffy have picked them instead? Had it just been in my mind? I wanted to see if it would happen again. So instead of putting on dry clothes, I threw on my swimsuits. When I got back to the pool, Mel and Charlie were playing Scrabble again. Hey, Charlie, get out of here, Mel was saying. That isn't a real word. Charlie looked up and saw me. Jack, it looks like you are ready for a real swim. Do you want to go to the beach? Well, I said, I was kind of wondering if I could maybe swim around with Ralph and Fluffy. And that's when I looked over and saw that Ralph and Fluffy weren't in the pool. Hey, where did they go? Oh, the pool cleaners are coming. So we put the kids inside the pool for a while. Charlie pointed to a smaller pool that was connected to the big one by a little underwater door. Hey, Jack, said Mel. How about taking a spin on the ride instead? We've got a couple that will really knock your socks off. I doubted that they're right. would knock my socks off, even if I was wearing it. But I didn't want to hurt Mel's feelings, so I followed him into the diving Dolphins ride. It's like those kiddie airplane rides. The planes go around in circles, and you make them go up and down with a joystick. Well, this ride had the dolphins instead of planes. Get ready for the ride of your life, said Mel. Then he started the ride. Frankly, I've been on scarier rides riding with my dad on the West Side Highway in New York. Mel and Charlie's place is probably a blast for 3-year-olds, but Mel looked so excited I couldn't let him down. Woo! I yelled. This is great! I threw my hands in the air and let out a couple of screams. After about 20 minutes, Mel stopped the ride and I got out. Was that great or was that great? Said Mel. It was great, I said. I'd forgotten how nice it is to see kids enjoying the rides. Nobody's been on these for months, Charlie said sadly. You're not doing so great, huh? I said. The big parks are trying to drive us little guys out of business, said Charlie. They have lots of money to get the big rides, to get the big animal acts, and to run the big ads. We can't really compete with them. If things don't get better soon, well, I'm afraid we are going to have to close. Now, Charlotte looked like she was going to cry. I felt really sorry for them. If you had to close the park, I said, what would happen to Ralph and Fluffy? Oh, lots of people know about Ralph and Fluffy. How smart they are, Mel told me. We've had lots of offers for them from the bigger parks, especially from an awful man who calls himself Long John Silverschmutzel. He owns a new theme park called Human Skull Island. Oh, right, Human Skull Island. Dad and I had seen 4 or 5 huge billboards for it on the way to Mel and Shelley's place. It looked kind of cool, but I didn't say that to Mel and Shelley. That bum, said Mel, shaking his head. I wouldn't sell him Ralph and Fluffy for all the tea in China. I don't blame you, I said. I mean, what would you do with that much tea anyway? That's just an expression, dear, said Shirley. You wouldn't sell Ralph and Fluffy to anybody. They're like children to us. Just then, a graphic green VW van pulled up to the front entrance of the park. 2 guys with the beards got out of it. One was tall and fat. The other was short and skinny. Look, I said. Customers. Mel and Shelley looked over at the van. No, Jack, said Shelley. Those are the pool cleaners, Horace and Boris. We left the rides and walked back to the pool. Horace and Boris pulled out the long poles and the brushes and went to work. Mel and Charlie looked like they really wanted to finish their Scrabble game. So I went over to the smaller pool and watched Ralph and Fluffy. They were swimming round and round, taking turns chasing each other. I wondered if they'd ever talk to me again. I waved at them. They turned over on their backs and waved their flickers. Ralph? Fluffy? I said. Can you understand me? They didn't look like they even heard me. If you can understand me, I said, please say something. Anything at all? Nothing. So it had to be one of the two things. Either it had all been in my mind, or else it only worked underwater. I wish the horse and boys would finish so I could find out. About 15 minutes later, Horse and Boris led the dolphins back into the big pool. Ralph splashed them, but not in a playful way. Fluffy blew water from her blowhole all over them. I could tell Ralph and Fluffy didn't like the pool cleaners, and I could tell the pool cleaners didn't like the dolphins either. You think you are so clever, I heard for Horace mutter. Well, just you wait. You may not be around here much longer. Wow, what did that mean? Was it some kind of treat? If Rolf and Fluffy would ever talk to me again, maybe I'd find out. Chapter 3. Yo! I yelled as I jumped into the big pool. The water was still pretty cold. Rolf and Fluffy were over on the far side of the pool. They were watching me closely. I swam over to them. Hi guys, I said out loud. They just continued to stare at me. Nothing, not a word. I must have been imagining it. Maybe I swallowed too much chlorine or something when I fell in. But just to be sure, I dove underwater. So did the dolphins. Wow, they sure looked big. Even bigger underwater. I wondered how much these guys weighed. I'm 318 pounds, said a gruff voice inside my head. And I'm 316, said a soft voice inside my head. I took off 5 pounds just this week. What's happening? I thought. How can they read my mind? How can you read ours? Good point. The soft voice must be Fluffy's. The gruff one, I thought, was probably Ralph's. Well, it sure isn't Flippers, I said the gruff voice. You know, I said, once in science class, I got an electric shock, and all day I could read everybody's thoughts, including a goldfish and a piranha. So maybe that's it. Maybe. But dear, with us it only works if we're underwater. I guess thoughts travel better in water. Just like electricity. By this time, I felt like my lungs were about to burst, so I came up for air. There was Shelly peering down at me. Why don't you get out of the pool now, Jack? Said Shelly. I don't want you to get too cold. I'm okay, I said. Couldn't I stay in it a little longer? I'm kind of in the middle of a conversation with Ralph and Fluffy. Charlie nodded. Her eyes were very wide. I dove back on the water. So, kid, said the gruff voice, what do you know about us? Do you think you're a fish or not? Or what? Probably not. Aren't you air-breathing mammals? Right, said Ralph. But do you know how smart we are? Well, smarter than sharks? Smarter than sharks? Ralph roared. Did you hear what he said, Fluff? Smarter than sharks? You kidding me? You know how big our brains are. As big as yours, kid. Bigger. You know how big a shark's brain is? As big as a Reese's peanut butter cup. Plus, we have a sonar. Kid, do you know what sonar is? So Puff, well, do you or don't you? Look, I didn't mean to insert you. We send out a sound, said Ralph. A clicking sound, okay? Like this. When it bounces off something, like a fish and it comes back to us, we can tell exactly how far away it is, how big it is, how it looks like. You think humans can sonar? I guess not. Well, you are wrong. Humans do have a sonar, but you have to get it in a store, kid. We already have it in our heads, okay? We don't have to buy it at the Radio Shack. Look, I'm sorry, I said after filling my lungs with air once more. I really am. I had no idea how smart you guys are. You can say that again. Hey, we'd do the New York Times crossword puzzle if we could hold a pencil. For sure, we could beat Mel and Charlie at the Scrabble. You could? Easy. Mel doesn't even know how to use his triple word scores. Sometimes, said Fluffy, when Mel and Shirley leave out the Scrabble board, we play a few games. It's fun. Everything's fun here. You sure seem happy there. Happy here, I thought. Oh yes, we love it, dear. Mel and Shirley are lovely. Even though Mel is always telling people to get out of places, but the horse and the boys are, well, they're bad news, Fluff. Okay? They're even dumber than sharks. Those pool cleaners' brains are probably about the size of a peanut M&Ms. What did the horse mean when he said you won't be around much longer? We're not sure, but they're up to something, said Fluffy. I just hope they're not planning to set us free. Yeah, Ralph added. Here, Mel and Shirley throw us a fish every time we do something cute. You think anybody in the ocean is helping out the free fish for being cute? I guess not. You know what it's like in the ocean, kid. Hunt, hunt, hunt. No time to relax. No time for Scrabble. Well, don't worry, Mel and Charlie wouldn't let anything happen to you. Even underwater, I could hear Charlie calling for me to get out of the pool. I waved goodbye and swam to the surface. I hoped that I was right when I said that the dolphins had nothing to worry about. Frankly, I thought the horse and boys were trouble. Big trouble. My, you certainly spent a long time in the pool, said Charlie as she helped me out of the water. Yeah, I said. Ralph and Fluffy have a lot on their minds. Uh-huh. And what did they tell you, dear? Oh, lots of stuff about the sonar and how they really like it here. They love you and Mel. Only one thing worries them. What's that? They're afraid of a horse and boys. Shirley studied my face. I see, she said. And how did they tell you this? I already said that I heard their voices in my head. You're serious, said Shirley. I nodded. Well then, I want to talk to them too, she said. I'll be back in a jiffy. A couple minutes later, she came back out in one of those old lady bathing suits with a skirt and a big pink rubber swimming cap with the orange flowers on it. So, what do I do now? She asked. Put your head underwater and think, I said. I have so much to ask them. Is the pool water too cold? Do they want to try a new kind of fish? Do they want to do more shows or less? She gave me a big smile and jumped in. 5 minutes later, she climbed out, dripping wet. What did they tell you? I asked. Nothing, she replied. Not a peep. Are you sure they spoke to you, Jack? I swear, I said. I could tell Shirley didn't believe me. I had to talk to Dad as soon as he got back from interviewing the Orange. Dad and I have been through a lot together. He was with me the time I got stuck in a parallel universe. He was with me the time my orthodontist turned into a monster. He was with me the time I started turning into a cat. Dad wouldn't have any problem believing I had had a conversation with dolphins. Chapter 4. I'm sorry, but I'm just having a problem believing you had a conversation with dolphins, said Dad. It was almost dinner time. Dad and I were driving to a new restaurant called Pasta in Pirates. Mel had gotten free dinner coupons in the mail, good for today only. So we were meeting Mel and Charlie there. Dad, why can't you believe me? I asked. You've been there when I went through things just as weird as this, weirder even. Remember when I started turning into a cat? Or when I made a colon of myself and it started making more little colons all over the place? Of course I remember. Then, why can't you believe I had an ordinary everyday conversation with a couple of ordinary everyday dolphins? You have a point there, Jack, Dad said with a sigh. All right, let's say this is true. And let's say herons and birds are up to something. What can we do about it? What about going to the cops? I said, and say what? That a couple of dolphins told you they were afraid 2 guys might set them free? I see the problem, I said. I guess not. Just then we pulled up to the restaurant. Outside, there was a black flag with a skull and 2 crossed forks on it. Mel and Charlie were already inside. It was fixed up to like a pirate ship. The sounds of splashing waves came over a loudspeaker. The floor even moves up and down like we were on a ship in rough water. Mel and Charlie waved to us, and we sat down at the table. A minute later, this really weird-looking guy came over. He was wearing a pirate's hat, a curly black mustache, and a black eye patch. He had a sword on his belt and a parrot on his shoulder. Avast there, mate, he said. Welcome to me, new restaurant. What can I get you? This is your place, said Mel, throwing down his naked. What's this? I asked. Long John Silver Matchgel, said Shelley. Her face was all red. The man who tried to buy Ralph and Fluffy for Human Skulls Island. Now, mate, said Long John, I'm hoisting the flag of truth. I'll not be needing those dolphins at all. Human Skull Island is drawing in more clouds than Captain Kidd's hanging. I want to patch things up. That's why I sent you the coupons. I want to treat you to dinner. Mel and Charlie looked at each other. I guess we can let the Vegans be vegans, said Shelley. Hang me from a yardarm if them ain't the sweetest words, said Long John. Then he waved at the waiter. "Smith, you take good care of these fine people." After Long John left, Shirley said, "Maybe Long John's a good man after all." "Get out of here," was all Mel said. I have to admit we had a good time. The service was very slow, but the Smith kept bringing us extra stuff like shark-shaped cookies. Compliments of the captain, he told us. It was pretty late by the time we got back. It was in the bathroom brushing my teeth. That's when I heard the scream out by the dolphin pool. It was pretty loud. I dropped my toothbrush. Dad and I raced outside. Charlie was standing next to the dolphin pool. She looked really upset. "Charlie," said Dad, "what's wrong?" "They're gone!" she cried. "Ralph and Fluffy! They've been kidnapped!" Mel was on the phone to the police. "Their names are Ralph and Fluffy," she said. "They were last seen in the pool at 6 p.m. There was a pause as he listened to the question. "I guess they each ate about 320 pounds, he answered. "Actually, they weighed 318 and 316, I said, but the man wasn't listening to me. "Well, they're sort of grayish," said Mel. "What were they wearing?" "Nothing. There was a longer purse." "I don't think the guy at the police station," Mel realized the man was talking about the missing dolphins. He probably thought the man was reporting two very large naked people with grayish skin. Mel finally got off the phone. "The police can't send anyone over tonight," he said, "but the detective will be here tomorrow morning." "I'm positive Horace and Boris are behind this," I told Mel and Shirley. "The dolphins were afraid they were planning something like this, but there was nothing to do except wait for the detective to come in the morning." Dad had already left for the Orange Grove when Detective Rosenblum arrived at 9 on the dot. She was short, even shorter than Boris, but she looked really tough. I told Detective Rosenblum what I'd heard Boris mutter to the dolphins. She nodded and wrote that in a little notebook. As soon as Horace and Boris showed up, she started giving them the third degree. She walked over to Horace. What have you and Boris done with the individual known as Ralph and Fluffy?" Horace shook his head. Nothing, said Detective Rosenblum. "But isn't it true you told the individuals in question that they might not be around here much longer?" Horace looked at Boris. "I might have said that," said Horace. "I can't remember." "Excuse me, officer," said Boris in a high, squeaky voice. "Yes, Boris," said the Detective Rosenblum. "When were the dolphins kidnapped?" "Between 6 and 9 p.m. yesterday evening." And the detective said Detective Rosenblum. "Well, between 6 and 9 p.m. yesterday evening," said Boris, "Horace and I were at our other job." "What's your other job?" "We test underarm deodorants at the Stink No More deodorant factory," said Boris. "We're sniffers." "You're what?" "People put different deodorant under their arms," said Boris. "We sniff to see how well they work." "I see," said Detective Rosenblum. "And someone at the factory will swear that you were there yesterday evening. Oh, yes, said Boris, and you had absolutely no plan to kidnap or do bodily harm to the individuals known as Ralph and Fluffy. Well, no, not really, said Boris. Excuse me, said that detective. Boris, said Horace. To be perfectly honest, said Boris, we did have a plan a little like that. Boris, said Horace a little louder, but we never got a chance to do it. I swear, said Boris, because somebody else beat us to the punch. Boris, said Horace. What? Said Boris. Shut up, said Horace. Are you gentlemen finished? Asked Detective Rosenblum. Pretty much, said Boris. Then why don't we drive down to Think No More so I can check out this cockamamie story of yours? The pool cleaners followed her to her police car. I wish the Detective Rosenblum had put handcuffs on them, but she didn't. Chapter 5. Well, what do you know? Horace and Boris were telling the truth. The head sniffer at the Stink No More factory said they really had been sniffing armpits there between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. yesterday evening, so Detective Rosenblum had to let them go. I'd advise you folks to stick close to a phone, she said to us, in case some bozo calls with a ransom demand. So we did. Dad was still over at the Orange Grove working on his story. But Mel, Charlie, and I hung around the front office. It was sad seeing the empty dolphin pool. Mel tried to get Charlie to play a game of Scrabble. He thought maybe it would take her mind off things. Mel, how can I think about the triple word scores at a time like this? She asked. I know, said Mel, shaking his head sadly. Shell, I still think it had to be those two bums. What else could it be? It could have been anyone, said Shelley. It could have been the Mafia. Get out of here, said Mel. What would the Mafia want with Ralph and Fluffy? I'm so sad. I don't even know what I'm saying, said Shelley. I felt really bad for both Shelley and Mel. I also felt really bad for Ralph and Fluffy. Where were they? How much money did someone think they could get for two dolphins? And then I went back to the idea that whoever took Ralph and Fluffy had set them free in the ocean. Maybe somebody thought they were doing the dolphins a favor. But it wasn't such a favor. As Ralph himself said, nobody in the ocean was handing out free fish for being cute. You know, I said, Ralph and Fluffy were afraid somebody would let them free in the ocean. If that's what happened, maybe I could contact them. How could you do that? Asked Mel. I could go into the ocean myself and see if I could send them a message somehow, I said. Thoughts travel better in water, just like electricity. Who told you that? Asked Shelley. Fluffy did, I said. I bet you can guess what Mel said next. Get out of here, said Mel. Now Shelley wanted to try, and Mel would do anything for Shelley. So the three of us drove to the ocean. It was a nice hot day. I waded out into the water. Good luck, said Mel. Don't go too far out, said Charlie. The water wasn't even up to my knees. Charlie was a lot like my grandma Leah. Then I got out deep enough. I held my nose. Then I went under. I started standing there, sending out messages. Attention, Ralph and Fluffy. Attention, Ralph and Fluffy. This is Jack. Do you copy? Come in, please. I wasn't too sure what do you copy meant, but they say that on TV cop shows, and I thought it sounded good. Nothing at all. I came up for air. Do you hear anything? Charlie called. Not yet, I said. I don't understand why they aren't answering, said Mel. Are you sure you're doing it the right way? What's the right way? I said. How should I know? Said Mel. You're the psychic. Boy, a little while ago they didn't even believe I could talk to dolphins. And now Mel thought I wasn't doing it right. Give me a break. But I could see how upset they were, so all I said was, I'll try again. So I did. Attention, Ralph. Attention, Fluffy. This is Jack calling. If you can hear me, please answer me. Answer now. And then, just as I was ready to call it quits, I thought I heard something. It was kind of fuzzy at first, but the sounds were getting louder. Jack, I read you. Repeat, I read you. Ralph, Fluffy, is that you? No, it's Tiffany. Oh, Tiffany, I said, are you a dolphin? Of course, on an Antarctic bottlenose. Well, I said, I'm trying to reach two dolphins named Ralph and Fluffy. They were kidnapped. I thought maybe they were taken to the ocean. Have you seen any new dolphins around? Nope, but I will get in touch with Elsinore. He's only a porpoise, but he knows everybody. Tiffany asked it if I could give her a couple of minutes to talk to Will's nurse. I said sure. I waited back to Mel and Shrill and told them I might be onto something. In 5 minutes, I went back underwater. Tiffany was waiting for me. Bad news, Jack. Elsinore is gone. His cousin Warren told me. Gone? What do you mean gone? Poor Elsinore. He's been taken to Human Skull Island. That's 3 of my friends so far who'd been kidnapped by that lousy fake pirate. Aha! That was it. That's why Long John Silverchin Schnitzel sent Mel free dinner coupons. Just so he'd have